Masquera say Mre Zimbabwe, welcome to our channel Zim Confessions and Deep Secrets. Channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Subscriber, don't forget to comment and share this video. Nasmre Zimbabwe, Tavigrai, the US Embassy. The US Embassy where Buddha is condemn mama actions are with Zimbabwe ahead of the SADC summit. Ma pro-democracy activists and my opposition leaders wabuda wachikondema ma actions in Zimbabwe ahead of the SADC summit wakabuda wacharaya wachiti even your SADC yacho if not our action since the declaration in SADC treaty democracy and security on vanvayo peace Hanzi, they are one of my main objectives SADC in the soul are respectful. The increasing reports of detention and violence toward the Zimbabweans exercising their constitutional rights of freedom of expression and assembly run counter to the democratic principles upon which SADC is built. Abuda, along with the messaging and declaration and treaty, and the main objectives of SADC are to achieve development, peace and security, and economic growth, to alleviate poverty, enhance the standard and quality of life of the people of Southern Africa, and support the socially disadvantaged through regional integration built on democratic principles and equitable and sustainable development. Those are Buddha Yashorwa. The US Embassy in Zimbabwe regarded the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum Buddha Yashorwa through a press statement Buditsa Achiti an urgent call to action escalating political violence in Zimbabwe. A statement issued by the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum. So in the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum, the forum is gravely concerned with the deteriorating human rights situation in the country ahead of the 44th SADC Summit to be held in Harare on 17 August 2024. And the intensification of the crackdown on opposition party supporters, civil society organizations, general citizens, and perceived dissenting voices at the instigation of the state is unacceptable. So, and the forum condemns this behavior in the strongest terms. The unwarranted escalation in violence and targeted attacks against well-meaning Zimbabweans raises fears that the country could slide to the 2018 and 2019 human rights violation that left 23 people dead and thousands maimed and displaced, and sustained attacks on civil liberties through arbitrary arrests, assaults, torture, and detention of citizens incommunicado have become commonplace. Such examples include the forcible removal of 4 pro-democracy campaigners, Namatai Kwekweza, the leader of We Lead Trust, Robson Chere, the Secretary General of Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, Samuel Wenzi, a founder, councillor for Harare Ward 5, and Vusumusi Moyo, from a plane at the Robert Mugabe International Airport, after which they were held incommunicado for several hours before their legal practitioners eventually located them. Chere sustained injuries pointing to evidence of torture, allegedly through assaulting him with planks and an iron bar and an iron rod. It was reported that unknown assailants stormed the plane and forcibly ejected them without producing any form of identification. The 4 was heading to Victoria Falls to attend the 5th African Philanthropic Conference, an annual gathering of civil society policy influencers and other stakeholders. And before the arrest and torture of the 4, the atmosphere in Harare had been growing tense with the heavy deployment of armed police officers at every street corner who were harassing civilians and inflicting various degrees of injuries to vendors and informal traders. The forum also notes the arbitrary arrest of 70 Citizens Coalition for Change CCC supporters, including infants and minors in Harare on 16 June, who have been denied bail for over 6 weeks. Bail is a constitutional right for every accused person. The arrest is an affront to the right to peaceful assembly and freedom of association. The forum has also noted the arbitrary arrest of 5 National Democratic Working Group supporters for holding an unsanctioned gathering and agitating for criminal act in the country on 29 June, a day before the police disrupted a memorial event for an opposition supporter killed in 2022 and arrested several participants on the same day in Mutasa district. 3 human rights defenders from Zimbabwe Peace Project, ZPP, working on livelihood program were brutally assaulted and detained for more than 2 hours. As a result of the assault, the trio sustained injuries emanating from palanga and other medieval torture tactics. Just 2 days ago, Kariba Member of Parliament John Walton and 13 other individuals were arrested in Kariba for staging a peaceful demonstration against the continued incarceration of CCC faction leader Jameson Timber and 77 other party activists. CSOs and student unions have been subjected to various degrees of brutality, including arbitrary arrest of 44 students from Zimbabwe National Student Union, which left 10 students with various degrees of injury. The forum reiterates that the right to freedom of assembly, association, and free speech are guaranteed in our constitution and regional and international human rights standard to Zimbabwe is party to. As such, the willful attacks against these rights as demonstrations by the government do not instill confidence and commitment to safeguard the rights of citizens. Sadly, however, the situation continues to be volatile as the summit draws closer. And the acceleration of the crackdown on opposition supporters and members of the civic society is driven by hate speech and systematic intimidation by high-level government officials, including the executive. This comes after President Emmerson Mnangagwa, Minister of Home Affairs Kazembe, and Minister of Information and Broadcasting Services Jennifer Mswere have issued threats against potential protests ahead of the SADC summit. On June 27, President Mnangagwa said he was aware of certain rogue elements within the nation who are bent on peddling falsehoods and instigating acts of civil disorder, especially before, during, and after regional and world stage events. President Mnangagwa's sentiments was echoed by ministers Kazembe and Mswere, who highlighted that the security was on high alert to decisively deal with the so-called rogue elements. And the forum reminds the government that while it is important to maintain order and peace, the Constitution provides for the freedom of association, assembly, as well as freedom of speech. It is the right of every citizen to protest peacefully. The Constitution also provides for the right to bail. As such, the government should protect and not persecute the citizens. Since President Mnangagwa took power in 2017, the country has witnessed a rise in state-sponsored human rights violations, intimidation, harassment, and repression, aimed principally at opposition members and civil society activists. Have restricted civic and political space. Several activists have been abducted and tortured in his 6-year-old, which is characterized by the weaponization of the criminal justice system against the ruling party's political opponents. Opposition politicians like Job Sikala, Jacob Garivumi, and journalist Opo Chingono have been held in prolonged pre-trial detention or convicted on baseless, seemingly politically motivated charges. The Forum, a coalition of 21 human rights NGOs in Zimbabwe, mandated to end organized violence and torture, implores the government to end repression of citizens by respecting their fundamental rights to freedom of expression, association, as well as the right to protest protest peacefully. Ratify the UN Convention Against Torture and Impunity and the weaponization of the law and thought dissenting voices, and to SADC to promote respect for human rights by calling on Zimbabwe to end arbitrary arrest of its citizens, torture and persecution of opposition and civil society members. And 2, to engage the African human rights system like the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and the African Court on Human and People's Rights to force Zimbabwe to fulfill its obligations to protect its citizens' human rights and people's rights. We further remind the government, law enforcement agents, and the executive of the submissions made by President Emmerson Mnangagwa through the inauguration speech on 25 August. Violence should be alien and vile to our nature, culture, and traditions as the Zimbabwean people. Those are Yashorwa the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO forums. Tigazoona senya etuze za mufunga pamusoro benyai mu comment section.